Hi, welcome to the Media Copilot. It's a podcast that dives into how AI is changing media, news, and communication. I'm your host, Pete Pachal. I covered tech for a long time as a journalist, and now I have deep discussions with the media players, the builders, and the creators who are answering the question, how will we get information in the future, and how will that change the practice of news gathering and the business of media? So let's talk B2B. A lot of publishers operate in the B2B world, probably more than ever, honestly. And for B2B media, one of the biggest questions right now is what buyers actually want from their publications. For audiences, attention is more scattered, discovery is changing rapidly, and AI is shrinking that patch from the question to the answer, and marketers are under more pressure to prove results. My guest this week lives on that side of the equation. It's Keith Turco, CEO of Madison Logic, a company built around B2B media buying, and is just the guy to talk to understand how AI and changing audience behavior is altering the business of media, especially B2B media. Keith, welcome.
Thanks so much, Pete. Thanks so much. Good to be with you.
Awesome. So before we get into all of it, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you. Tell us who are you exactly, and what does Madison Logic do in plain English?
As you said, I am the CEO of Madison Logic. I have spent my career on equal parts agency side and client side, as we like to say, and over almost the last 2 years have been here at Madison Logic diving into the ABM space and B2B media specifically, but a significant amount of my
ABM space is what? We're going to have to spell it all out here.
Account-based marketing, which we can get into a little bit more when we talk about media in the B2B world.
I can't wait.
But have spent 30 plus years dancing around and in performance marketing, B2B marketing, and account-based marketing.
Okay. So, according to your background, you've mentioned you worked at agencies, you've done some enterprise tech stuff, some growth roles. Like, what is the through line in your career that helps explain how you see this moment here?
I'll go back actually all the way to college. I double majored in information systems and marketing, which is where we are today, largely from a performance-based perspective, and have been my whole career. Now is the time of the geek chic, where we can actually measure things, do things, leverage AI to actually help us do it, and making B2B sexier than people tend to think it is, because it's not a consumer retail brand kind of approach to marketing. So, as you said, there's a lot more happening in the B2B world than ever before.
Okay. And you've been in the CEO role since 2024, right?
Coming up on 2 years. May will be 2 years.
All right. And what do you think had changed the most about the market you were serving when you stepped into that role?
I think account-based marketing and lead generation in the B2B space had a huge push during COVID. So there was lots of momentum and then lots of shifts happening going back to pre-COVID habits, so to speak. So lots happening from when we were not allowed to go to events and be in person. On the B2B side, it was very impactful. So the pendulum swung quite a bit into the account-based marketing side of the equation and performance digital side, so that marketers had to show that they could do more with less when budgets were being cut and prove the ROI on what they did. So the pendulum swung very much in our favor. Post-COVID, we're seeing the world get back to a new normal, where there's a balance of both in-person and traditional marketing. But I think the do more with less has never been truer. So everything needs to be measured and performance-based. And oftentimes you'll see even the traditional brand side of the equation of media mix finds its way into an account-based marketing funnel. So everything is measurable.
Yeah. And I'd certainly, at that same time that you stepped in, AI was really taking off, and that's got to be that's got to be changing big things on the audience side, and that's kind of what I really wanted to dive into. So, like, a lot of publishers, they're trying to understand what audiences do now, right? Like versus what they used to do. And what do you think has changed most in how buying groups, I guess, the folks that you care the most about?
Absolutely.
How do they discover and consume information now today versus how they were doing it just a few years ago?
Yeah, I think pre, during, and then post-COVID created a new normal for us. And I think that there's no such thing as the 9 to 5 job anymore. People, especially with the work from home approach to life, lots of us are back in office at least 2 to 3 days a week, but still work from home. And there's not a clear delineation between am I in the at work state of mind or the personal state of mind? And I think use of technology, the use of AI to get there is obviously happening quite quick. Podcasts like this, right, make a difference in my personal life when I'm driving to work or when I'm on the treadmill in the morning. So the use of traditional brand related stuff has made its way into the performance marketing measurement world, or account-based marketing as we call it. So lots of traditional brand formats that are now being measured like traditional marketers. I think it's an interesting time to be a B2B marketer in particular, where typical consumer advertising was always considered sexy, consumer retail especially, right? Fashion and retail. So moving into the traditional business to business side of the house, which is a large part of it is tech, but there's also financial services, healthcare, and some of the other verticals where everything has to be measured. Everything has to be part of a continuum of dollars and ROI that our clients look for. Using AI to get there on top of performance marketing in its fullest and truest sense. So everything old is new again, makes those B2B functions kind of cool and sexy and geek chic, so to speak. So being able to apply traditional measurement metrics to a full funnel marketing approach allows us to show true ROI and show that $5 feels like 50.
And you mentioned using AI to get there. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that exactly? What do you mean? Is it what
I think,
part of the process is AI being used?
yeah, I think it's important to note that AI is complementary in our world and helps in the evolution of what we do. So it's not going to replace, but it kind of enhances and refines um, our understanding of the buying groups, our ability to target the buying groups.
Now, are
Our
you just to ground it? Are we talking about AI summaries and answers and audiences using? What are we talking about?
I'm
Like,
talking about AI as part of a functional approach to the way marketers approach. So yes, part of it is no click searches, or instead of SEO, it's AEO, right? But also the use of AI from a targeting, understanding the buying group, how to target, what to say to them, what intent data makes the most sense to work with them, where their interests and insights lie, and how to leverage that in a B2B space, not just a consumer space.
gotcha. So let's take those one at a time. So
hmm
in terms of the AI now in the the world and the people trying to reach people, there's this intermediary now that's summarizing things between you and the customer. So how is that factored into this approach that you have, or this philosophy?
Um, we talked about the convergence of mediums in today's world from a work from home perspective, right? Being on a treadmill, in a car, listening to a podcast, the use of CTV, typical brand related things. Combine that from a messaging based perspective, knowing that Pete's interests lie in these areas. So this is where we should be focused on hitting him with messages, which would typically be a consumer space. But we know that no one is um, in their personal lives only. There's a confluence of work and personal. So I tend to call that the at work state of mind. So you can be in a network state of mind whether you're on the treadmill in the morning, driving in the car on the weekend, out with friends, and seeing something from an out of home based perspective that influences your business decision making, and understanding the buying groups, their interests. The use of AI helps enhance and refine what we traditionally did, not necessarily replace it. So, knowing what to say, how to say it, what your interests are, and how to do. The world is one to one to few versus one to many today.
And so you're talking about this I forgot what you said, the mindset, or the at work
At work
mindset,
state of mind.
at work state of mind, and you're trying to reach someone like me who may be making B2B decisions at my company, or be part of a group anyway that
Mhm.
probably is. Because I know you've observed many times that the number of people around a decision has
Sure.
increased over the last few
Absolutely.
years, like when you're
Yeah.
making a B2B software decision or something like that. Can you explain
Gartner's
that and
actually,
why that's happened?
yeah, Gartner recently came out with anywhere between 5 and 16 people at a corporation that are required to weigh in on and make a decision or contribute to a decision from a B2B perspective. And it's because typically B2B decisions are for much larger budgets. It's not a immediate gratification consumer play. It's often millions of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands. It's definitely millions of dollars. So there's plenty of people that have to weigh in on those decisions. So understanding the buying group, understanding how many times you have to hit them with a message for it to resonate. If you have anywhere between 5 to 15 people in a buying group and you have to hit them 7 to 12 times, lots of messaging required. So the multi-channel media mix comes into play quite a bit, and the measurability of traditional brand level stuff is critical, which is why I say that everything winds up coming into the account-based marketing funnel, so that we can measure the impact of it. And we target at the account level and the buying group level and the title level. So AI helps us from that perspective understand the buyers, understand where they are, why they're there, what they're doing, and what messages resonate with them.
And what about, reaching all these sort of potentially disparate people? You mentioned sort of like, they're doing stuff at home and at work, but they're different people doing
Mhm.
different things, even if they're at the same company. But does this multi-channel, multimedia approach, I mean, does AI help in that sense, in that it's sort of looking at this pattern and it's looking at things that you have in various places, and then hopefully like that can reach those people at different times, particularly if they're sort of asking queries into these AI engines?
I think it's a helpful glue. I don't think
Okay.
it's an obstacle, and it's a helpful glue that is a refiner, not a reinventor, and a collaborator with the human on the other side. It allows us to version at scale when you have 15 buyers. It allows for the one-to-one or one-to-few messaging versus the traditional one-to-many messaging from a non-performance based approach and or an advertising versus a marketing based campaign. So it allows you to version things and do things creatively, target people from a hyper targeted perspective, and as I said, you go from the one to many to one to one or one to few, and it's a
Mm.
refiner that allows you to do that using AI.
So let's talk about the media side of this, I guess the buy side.
Yep.
So if I'm running a B2B publication today, what do marketers, buyers, what do they value from me exactly?
There's probably 5 to 10 different facets from that perspective, but every buyer has a different definition of ROI, and the the demand for measurability is paramount. So as a publisher, understanding that there's more than one person that you're targeting, there's a buying group, understanding that there's multiple messages and multiple mediums that the message has to go to for different people in different places. Being able to tie it all together from a measurability perspective so that they can report on whatever their ROI metric is. And when I say that, I mean a marketer from a B2B standpoint might say, I just care about how much I drive for pipe for the sales team. How much
Mm.
pipeline am I filling for them? Another marketer will say, I measured on the amount of appointments I set for the sales team. Others will absolutely get down to specific criteria of, I'll have to shorten my sales cycle from 18 months to 3 months. And does your media mix help me get there? So those are the things that resonate from a buying perspective with the buyers that plan media that way.
Are the media properties, are they particularly advantaged in this way? Do they have an advantage over other platforms, or maybe sort of broader places that like someone would do that? Like basically, what is the standout thing that gets marketers to want to do business with them rather than doing it sort of elsewhere?
I think it's, are they able to be part of the ecosystem and orchestration that allows for measurability? I know that
Mm.
sounds like a mouthful, but um, are we orchestrating how the buyer is consuming the media, when they're
Mm.
consuming it, which medium works best for them, and that what yields the quickest response and quickest path to ROI, depending on how they measure it.
And then, when you get away from or include things like audio, video, even connected TV, those kind of things expanding, it feel like the cost of those those media is sort of going down, even while there might be some AI slop mixed into that. There's still, I think, a certain amount of demand for that. Would you
Th-
say that like the B2B attention is sort of going a little more in that direction?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Audio, display, not just content syndication and lead generation, right? So I was speaking with a client yesterday, a B2B client specifically, that said everything is ABM now for me. What
Hmm.
traditionally was considered brand and video or audio it has to make its way into measurability. So when we talk about ABM or account-based marketing, it specifically pertains to B2B. And when you take traditional brand level stuff that at one time it's measurable, but wasn't as measurable as it is today. When you put it into the marketing mix and into the marketing funnel, which is where Madison Logic specializes, we can guarantee the measurability of it and the overlap of it at the audience level and individual level.
And where does a podcast like this one sort of fall into that, how marketers are guided in terms of the
Oh, it's
funnel?
definitely a
And of
critical.
just, yeah.
Yeah, we've
Not asking just purely out of self-interest, by the
No,
way,
no,
but
no.
curious.
Sure. Yeah. We call it audio, right? Versus just podcast because audio takes
Mm.
multiple forms in multiple places. But podcasts fit into that. And it is a critical component of um, today's business decision maker because it does catch them in that at work state of mind when they might be on that treadmill or on the drive in or on the train ride home, um, where oftentimes we used to just listen to some kind of streaming music service. We take much more advantage of that, and it plays a critical component in the media mix for sure.
Yeah,
Having to hit them at any business decision makers 7 to 10 times, and having anywhere between 5 and 16 of them, you have to definitely refine your media mix and understand the optimal media mix for the targets that you're going after.
I'm always impressed with how much AI and I guess like just how dynamic these ads can be. I often hear in podcasts, and
Yeah,
I kind of expect that with internet, but for podcasts, it's sometimes it's a download versus a stream, et cetera. But I feel like that technology has just gotten so good that I'll hear sort of borderline personalized ads now just on
absolutely.
whatever app I'm using,
Mhm.
which signals to me how much attention is being paid to this medium often.
I would agree. And it's funny. We are a platform-enabled managed service. So we have a platform at our core that is an intelligent data platform, and then obviously account managers and customer experience managers that manage the delivery of the media that we deliver for clients. We're not in the creative side of the house, but I do think
Mm.
the creative use of AI and scaling for one-to-one and one-to-few is fantastic. Aids obviously what we do in the space. So
Nice. So
again, the evolution of using AI to do that, I think, is great from a hyper personalized standpoint.
totally. To zoom out a little bit from podcasts, sort of back to the publishers. So some B2B publishers, they might say something like, well, I have a highly engaged, highly niche, specialized audience, and I've built a lot of trust with them. But maybe I struggle to prove performance per se. What advice do you have for that kind of publication? And again, I'm not asking this kind of total self interest.
Yeah. Um, Again, I think the use of AI today, there shouldn't the evolution of measurability to prove value shouldn't be as difficult, right? And it doesn't replace; it helps explain, understand, and evolve the offering. So the advice I'd have is to embrace AI, but on top of that, embrace performance marketing. And traditionally, the traditional mix of eyeballs and impressions has shifted to clicks and action, right? So being able to measure it makes marketers much more interested in the offering from a media standpoint, which is what works again to Madison Logic's advantage. The media we provide, the mix we provide, the platform that allows you to measure it and map it to your marketing goals and objectives is what allows us to stand out in a sea of competition. So it's marrying those and embracing performance first. So traditionally, what we would, as marketers 20 years ago, just consider a brand component of video or audio. I'll say TV or radio, right?
Mhm.
In the old world, has evolved to the new world of video and audio, and working its way into measurability and using technology to do that, if embraced and harnessed the right way, makes you much more relevant in today's B2B space.
Nice. Well, when publishers are first, well, I mean, when you first encounter them, like what do you think they're getting wrong the most? Like, what do they get wrong about in terms of like what marketers want from them? Like, obviously, there's the performance stuff you were just talking about, but like, how do they even get there?
Asking your marketers to measure the publication offering in traditional ways versus performance based ways is something that a lot of them still haven't morphed to, right? And getting to a much more performance based approach, advertising as we know it has changed drastically, will be extremely different in 5 years, 4 years time. Um, Jen and I actually talked about uh, advertising is dead will be dead as we know it by 2030, because the world has shifted to performance based marketing, specifically not just in the B2B space, but in consumer, but largely in the B2B space, where every dollar makes a difference, and
Mm,
or every dollar has to be measured. And what is the true ROI? I talk about what's the definition of ROI.
mhm,
It's different for every customer and client that's out there, right? So how are they measuring it? What are they doing? Is it shortening the sales cycle in the B2B space? Is it appointment setting? Is it um, you know, pipeline filling? But all of that has to be measured, and all the
mhm.
dollars that you put against an account-based marketing strategy definitely move into that space.
Sounds like on the technical side, obviously better measurement, better analytics, looking at the right things. That's important.
Absolutely.
But what about on the content side? Like, how should publishers think about content strategy in this world where
Yeah.
it's more performance based?
I know I've said it before, and I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I apologize. One to one and one to few over one
Mhm.
to many from a content perspective absolutely
To
is
go
critical
niche,
in this
narrow,
space. Yes,
focus,
if you've got
get in
a
the weeds.
buying group, absolutely, Pete. If you've got a buying group of 4 to 5 people that are specifically buying a very complicated, multi-million-dollar B2B purchase, you know, a ERP system from SAP, right? That's millions and millions of dollars. So understanding what their interests are, what makes them tick. There are different buyers. There's a CFO and a procurement person versus a CEO and a COO. And different things matter to different people that are in that same buying group. So absolutely, to your point, being niche, very targeted, understanding that they might be from the same company, buying the same product, but they are measured. They have personal KPIs that are very different from each other. So being able to hyper target and be hyper focused in your messaging is are the two sides of the coin that come to the forefront. Definitely.
So it sounds like if there's a question on the AI side of things, so it's like, now that you have the intermediary of AI and whether that makes what that does to a B2B media brand, that it becomes more valuable because of their authority as opposed to less valuable because of like fewer people click through, which, I think tends to be
Correct.
kind of the default that a lot of people go to. Oh, I can't have a business now because I'm only getting 10 click throughs from
Correct.
ChatGPT or whatever. But it
It's
is,
more about quality
but
than
well, that exactly
quantity.
those 10 people, like if you've
Mhm.
got the goods, if you got the goods,
Correct.
are going to be those buyers, presumably.
Yeah. That's why we talk about buying groups and hyper targeting and then hyper messaging to those targets, to your point.
Yeah.
So the 10 people converting them to make that multi-million-dollar decision is very different than having, a huge amount of click through and buying a $3 item or a $10 item.
Nice. So is there like, I hate to do questions like these, but I'm curious. I'd like to boil them down too, where it's, is there like a metric, a specific kind of metric or a specific kind of signal that publishers should be paying more attention to, that you wish they would, and should definitely be on the rise over the next couple of years, given all the trends we're talking about?
Do you mean like, are we going from
Oh,
CPL
like,
and CPM to something different, or?
well, I think that's obvious, but yes. But what is that thing? The different thing, other than maybe just conversions or whatever. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
you mentioned a couple different ways that you measure
to measure
performance, but
ROI.
I mean, on the publisher side of things, obviously the marketers have the things they want to measure, and so is that what sort of the publishers should also be focusing on, or are there some other broader metrics that are a little related or above it that will trickle down to that conversion?
No, I think to bluntly answer your question, a client first, customer first approach from a publishing perspective,
Mm,
understanding what they're measuring, why they're measuring it, and helping them with the how they can measure it from you. But all of it will go back to what's the right mix to get the best ROI, and their definition varies greatly from a B2B perspective. From a marketing standpoint, it's important to understand that, are you being measured on absolute and total sale in dollars, which eventually over time makes sense, but in the B2B enterprise space especially, that's an 18-month cycle. So, what can you do to prove or deliver value to the organization? And is that increasing the amount of pipeline you have in your sales funnel? Is it tying the marketing qualified lead to the sales qualified lead and showing that there's continuity between the two? Is it setting appointments? I've said that a couple of times, so I apologize, but the definition of ROI varies greatly from the buyers in the B2B space. I will say though, when you look at some of the research that we've done, you asked about audio and podcasts. 47% of the B2B buyers will say that they believe that audio and podcasts should make their way into the mix, right? Or 84% of B2B marketers are moving away from traditional impressions toward performance and data driven impressions. So the traditional audio world is playing a bigger role. Performance marketing is playing a bigger role. So when you ask about um, what metrics, and yes, CPMs and CPLs are performance based, but in the B2B space, where less is more, or the business decision makers are a group of 10 buyers and not thousands of buyers, leaning into how they measure it and what they do is critical. So as you put your media mix together with what you typically think is more brand related, moving it
mm.
into a measurable space, and then understanding that the buying community is much smaller means that quality over quantity is critical, and understanding how the marketer interprets return on investment is very different in a case by case basis.
Nice. You mentioned like audio. Audio has come up a few times. No
Yeah,
coincidence. It's a podcast. But
sure.
is there any other part of that media mix that you see that is sort of rapidly on the rise in this particular space?
It's a combination of display, CTV, audio,
Hmm.
and social. Like your some of the Harris Poll research that we've done too talks about the B2B to C, leveraging
Okay.
the traditional search social on the consumer side and pulling it into the B2B side. So we've
Social
seen it with
social can mean a lot of different things, though, right? I mean, it's
sure.
like you got LinkedIn, you got X, you got TikTok, et cetera. Those are even very different networks. Like I always feel
Yeah,
like B2C is, that's where TikTok's kind of playing.
it is,
And
but
that
I think it's actually starting to make its way into the B2B world.
really,
And that's, yeah. So we
okay,
talk about everyone expects you to say LinkedIn, right?
sure, of course.
And X. But
Oh, X,
when you,
really? Okay,
yeah, yeah, definitely.
maybe
Yeah.
a little.
No, it's I can tell you that there have been strategies specifically around, well, Twitter, specific to what part of the mix in the B2B space does it play and does it influence. And I think you're
Interesting.
starting to see the same thing, depending on the demographics of the buying group. You might see some B2B stuff on Facebook. You might see some B2B
Hmm.
stuff on TikTok. So again, there's two different things, right? The demographics of the B2B buyer vary greatly, but you're starting to see the Gen Zs and millennial people in the B2B space come
Right.
to the forefront, and they're making a whole lot of business decisions.
Yeah,
So
they're in that group now for sure.
absolutely. So
Interesting.
we've got lots of our clients asking us about, does TikTok make sense, and should I have a B2B message on TikTok or Insta? The metas of the world are definitely leaning in because they can hit multiple groups in different places based on the properties that they own. So the Facebooks hit the larger groups, and the Instagrams and even WhatsApps hit the younger groups. So text messaging via WhatsApp also makes a big difference.
And so with all these kind of surfaces and, obviously a lot of brands have their own newsrooms and owned and operated, just sort of maybe close us out a bit by sort of telling us like what is the B2B sort of media's place in all this. I think probably a couple years previous, there'd been a lot of talk about going direct and do you even like again, this is sort of separate in a separate conversation that was happening in tech. But I mean, if you remove like the the whatever politics might have been attached to it, there's sort of a media sort of question that was being asked and answered on like, oh, could you do things on your own without the media? But in this new era of AI, can you tell me like how true or untrue that is, and how like basically the importance of B2B media now?
If I understand your question correctly, uh, do clients and customers need the services of um, marketing partners, right? Whether it be agency or a B2B platform like Madison Logics. Uh, I think the answer is based on the sophistication and the tools that we've built. It makes it makes for a much more robust experience on the customer side, and some of our customers and clients doing a kind of hybrid where they've brought a lot in house, but they still rely on us for data measurement, targeting, and insights, right? So it's the intelligence and insights that services like Madison Logic or other independent third parties outside of the customers or clients that bring everything in house or talked about bringing in house. I think they've found a healthy mix of what makes the most sense.
I try to close out with the same question for my guests, but so think about this: like, what's one thing you are hopeful about, and one thing you are concerned about with respect to AI in your area of the media world?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we're starting to see we're moving away from AI hype and into a practical approach and way to leverage and use AI in the marketing space as well as in the B2B marketing space. I kind of referred to it as geek chic earlier, right? Where it's the proper use of tech and and people coming together and going back to the basics of measurability. It's less about impressions and eyeballs and more about tracking performance, so clicks and responses and outcomes. So I'm hoping AI helps enhance that, and I do see it working that way. Um, the hype of replacing everything has kind of subsided, and finding the right balance of the two, being a refiner and not a reinventor, really is starting to really come to the forefront of people's understanding.
That sounds like what you
That's
were hopeful about. What are you
hopeful.
concerned about?
That people over-index, and I don't think it'll be effective marketing because the way AI works today, there's a lot of suspect information that's collected. It's an aggregator today. It's not a smart use. It doesn't think for you, right? It aggregates. So the human element needs to be there and needs to stay there. And I think again, post hype, everyone's starting to realize that the right balance of AI and traditional human interaction make a role. So I guess what excites me is also probably what concerns me if people over-index one way or the other.
Nice. Thanks for that vision. All right, Keith. Thanks for
Sure.
stopping by the Media Copilot. Really
Thanks for having me,
appreciate
Pete.
you hanging out with us.
Yep. Great.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Keith Turco. Media Copilot is a podcast, and it'd be fantastic if you could give the show a star rating if you're listening on Spotify, a like and a subscribe if you're on YouTube, and a review if you're on Apple. All those things really do help the show because it will put our podcast in front of more people. The Media Copilot podcast is produced by Michelle Musso of Musso Media. Look for her link in the show notes, and don't forget to subscribe to the Media Copilot newsletter as well. Thanks again for being here, and I'll be seeing you in the future.